All right. Let me pass this link around. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first in a long off time of doing the SEO live stream. Things got pretty busy there, but I'm going to try and make this a weekly habit because I see that there's a lot of people out there, especially right now, kind of struggling with things, maybe not even just SEO related, but business in general. And I find myself having a lot of private conversations with people that I think, it's current stuff that's resonating with a lot of folks out there, whether they're SEOs, whether they're digital marketers in general. And so I think there's a lot of fundamentals that have changed for a while. I was thinking that some of these videos are getting kind of stale because virtually all of the questions had already been answered. But now that the landscape is substantially changed, I think it's a good opportunity to bring this back. I know it's doing a lot of good for a lot of people out there. So yeah, here I am. Feel free to come in weekly and bring your questions. If you're not familiar with us or you don't know us, then make sure to get in our Facebook group, the SEO Round Table, where we are active regularly. If you've got any questions, that's the fastest place. And otherwise, I will be coming to this every week starting today. So I see some people have already joined. Happy to have you. Thanks for coming. So I've got a couple questions that I think are pretty potent here. Oh yeah, let me put this back on. If you guys don't already know, I'm going to plug this. You guys know I'm horrible at plugs. We're doing 25% off for an entire month instead of just doing the classic Black Friday thing. I'm not really a fan of it anyway. So we just went ahead and doubled what we normally do. Full month long, 25% off all our products, including managed link building. Yeah, get in there if you haven't used this before, or if you're just looking to get good links on a very steep discount. This is the biggest sale of the year that we do. All right. So first question. PBNs might be helping, but right now there's no clear data proving it. So the next step is isolating the PBNs and testing them independently instead of mixing them with social signals, niche edits, etc. Now, a little bit of context behind the person that brought this to us. They brought on a new CMO who was trying to digest what was going on with their current recipes as far as what they're doing for SEO, including on-page standpoints and off-page standpoints, right? And they started discussing a lot of things that I feel have become very common between SEO as a community, and things that I think are worth kind of navigating and getting an eye on. So what I want to talk about is the current need to adjust your philosophy when it comes to how you are doing SEO. Most of you are familiar with the rel equals 100 change, right? That we're having very hard time with trackers digesting information past page 1 on what's going on, where you're resonating. A lot of people that only know how to jump into Ahrefs or a comparable tool and analyze that stuff from a very basic standpoint are just seeing traffic fall off everywhere. But it's not necessarily the case. And furthermore, I think it's very important that when you are trying to concoct recipes to success, especially now, it's gotten more competitive, and you have to believe in the philosophy behind SEO more than ever if you want a leg up, which is why I preach, borderline religiously, the diversification of your backlink profile while maintaining a very high standard when it comes to your on page is of the utmost importance now more than ever. And it's been years that we've been talking about this. And we're not just talking about ranking in Google. We're talking about getting mentions in the LLMs, etc. What is virtually impossible to do right now is what I was doing, 10 years ago, or even less time than that. But the landscape has changed hard, right? When I was just selling PBNs exclusively, it was easy for me to show people, hey, look what this one PBN did when pointed at an inner page of a site that was already resonating fairly well. You'd get these rank graphs that spike up, very easy to digest, very easy to understand. Well, that link is really good. This link is not so good, right? And it was easier to do what this client is talking about, which is prodding at these variables. But I don't see how you would really do that anymore. You can try, but with the lack of ability to view the outcomes, as well as what I believe to be the main changing factor, which is no one variable is being taken into account in like an isolated fashion anymore. You have to develop a well-rounded narrative around what you're doing. Your website has to be a full-on business, and it still operates the same way it did before. Proper on-page in the form of your content, what's being said, now bringing something new to the table, etc. More important than ever, right? But I'm still using Surfer SEO to digest general analytics, get the right amount of content out there, as I also bring something new to the table. Make sure that this isn't just regurgitated information, but something new, that I'm focusing on EEAT, etc., right? And then from a backlinking perspective, I know just due to the amount of websites that I work on, the amount of data that we've got at Sir Links a lot alone, then also KPI.me, where I'm monitoring all these things, the people that are benefiting right now are well-rounded. From a backlink standpoint, you have a diverse mix of backlinks, because that is one of the hardest things to emulate. I spoke about this forever ago when I kind of talk about my aha moment in backlinking, which is I watched my buddy who works in cybersecurity with a small 10-page website. He puts up a piece of viral content on an exploit he'd figured out, which, boom, overnight, he's ranking all over the place. Before that night, he had maybe 10 referring domains. Overnight, well over 1,000. At the time, discussions on link velocity and things of that nature were paramount to what people were discussing as far as, important topics. But that reality sent me on an understanding that diversification of your backlink profile in conjunction to the content that you're putting up is what actually affects strong resonance in the SERPs. And now also in LLMs, you can discuss it with LLMs in and of itself. But in my opinion, the days of really prodding with one variable, while you might be able to get some resonance out of stuff, it's not really a well-rounded view on what's going on and whether you're doing the right thing or not. What you'll come to find, especially in digesting large amounts of data, is that the assets with the most well-rounded content profiles, and we're not just talking about on their own website, but the networks around the website, right? These YouTube videos, all of this stuff paints a narrative about how strong what you're building is, right? I can, with proof, and I've got a post on it, show you why Sir Links-a-Lot is mentioned in LLMs a whole lot whenever you discuss backlinking. It's because we've put out countless videos, we've put out a lot of information. There's a lot of digestible information associated not only with the website itself, but the entire network. It is strong, it's potent, right? And then from a backlinking perspective, all of that is white hat organic stuff. But if you look at it, it's all a diverse group of links, anchor texts, the type of links that you get mentions from, etc. They all hold different weight. And the hardest thing to emulate is the blend and diversification of the weight within that link profile. And when you focus on that, the greater philosophy, you'll start to realize SEO hasn't really changed. It's just harder to digest, and it takes more faith when it comes to building out these link profiles. And unfortunately, like, that's going to create larger barrier to entry for a lot of people because, yeah, you've got to spend quite a bit of money to get this stuff ranking. But I do, I don't like to sugarcoat it for the sake of selling, etc. I do think that is the future that we're going into. You're going to have to care more about what you're working on. You're going to have to take a broad scope approach to what you're working on, and you're going to have to become an authority unless something drastically shifts. But everything that I'm seeing over the last few years really has exponentially been more of a driving factor towards the overall authority of the network or the websites themselves. And that's just one of the harsh realities of SEO as we go into the future. So in my opinion, focus more on broad strokes versus minute details that you think are controlling the narrative, because the more time you spend there, there's going to be a lot more time and money and energy wasted when really these algorithms, and if you think about it from the perspective of like a Google engineer or something in that sense, have gotten more complex in that they analyze more data, more variables, not isolated necessarily, but together, the narrative as a whole, right? So just something to wrap your head around. Yeah. Let's see, we got a comment here. Well, hello, Paul. How you doing? From Virginia. Happy to have you. If you've got any questions, seems like there's a lot of people coming and going. If y'all have any questions, I will take your questions before jumping on to the stuff that I've got saved. But if not, then I'll just keep going down the rabbit hole. So let's see. Guess I'll go with another PBN question, though I know that wasn't really a PBN question per se. It just offered up opportunity. I'll put as much as I can here. All right. Hey guys, I got a couple questions about PBNs. I want to either get my own or build one. I'm new with them and don't know the right course of action to take. Could anyone with a lot of experience and willing to answer some questions please message me? I ended up talking to this guy in private quite a bit. But one of the first things that I want to say is if you go over to Google, and I could share my screen, but I don't think it's necessary, and you type in Sir Links-a-Lot build PBN sheet, that should probably pop it up. Yeah, and you go, okay, so yeah, PBN checklist will probably work. You go to the first entry in the SERPs there, you'll find an article I put up forever ago that still, I've gone over it, looks good today, has a downloadable PBN checklist on footprints that you would want to analyze, as well as type of plugins that you'd want to add to any PBN, etc. Right? Now, there are a lot of new nuances and caveats to building a footprint free PBN. And it was one of the first networks that I learned how to design. Probably not where I would say to start, quite honestly. It's probably better to do outreach if you want to start getting a network going. But just the same, you've got a lot of control of that narrative. Some interesting things that I think get pointed out a lot when building a PBN, especially when it comes to building your own as a smaller SEO. Well, let's say you've got one or two sites. Those are the main sites you're working on, or even maybe you've got a handful of clients and you're wanting to build this PBN to help out the entire network. What you're going to come to find when you've got 5 to 10 domains in your PBN is that as you start linking to your money sites, you get a lot of crossover. So then you've got to start thinking about, well, how do I add extra content in here? Or how do I diversify the backlinks that I'm going to? And in the end, if you've oversaturated your small network of money sites with your small network of PBNs without diversifying the other type of backlinks coming in, you're giving yourself a footprint. Now, it might not be a footprint that provides any kind of de-indexation, but it might not resonate positively. It might end up kind of sandboxing you, even though I hate using that term, in the sense where, you just find yourself consistently plateaued. So if I'm being honest, as a newer SEO, I would advise not building a PBN right out of the gate, unless you want to build a handful of them to where you're just strategically linking to one asset and you're leaving it as that. As a matter of fact, I still run my own PBN, but I don't use it half as much as I did when I was first starting out. And when I do use it, I prefer to use my inner pages or create guest posts on the PBN, which keeps it looking very natural. The reason that I brought my first company, Freedom Links, made it open to the public, was because I realized this would help me diversify the content going up, as well as the assets I was linking to, or the websites I was linking to. And in turn, that creates more insulation. And so a lot of times I would probably argue that you're better off, since they are cheaper links, finding a provider that knows how to build a PBN. And there's more than just us, right? Like, I don't ever preach like you have to come to us to get your only products. But I do know how I build mine. And I know that I built mine specifically to work on my own assets with them. The availability to the public was more of an afterthought to what I was building for myself and clientele, right? But I use the inner page stuff more often, which I don't think a lot of people sell. And I use the homepage contextual backlink very sparingly. And the only time I use it now is as a branded or naked anchor text, or even a random anchor text pointed at the homepage. I virtually never send it to an inner page, and I almost never, or rather I haven't in a long time, used exact match money anchors as a contextual homepage link from a PBN to a money site. And the reason is because it goes back to the concept I was speaking about before, which is building the overall authority of the network. If I'm working on that, then I find that it's easier to rank inner pages for particular SERPs or mentions. And the homepage contextual backlink is very rare in the SERPs. How many are you seeing on Business Insider or comparable website that's actually linking from the homepage of that website to the inner page of another site? It's an incredibly rare link to have naturally. And so I use it with that in mind. If I'm trying to build out a narrative, then if I am going to go that route, or if somebody really just wants to go that route, I'm going to preface it with saying, okay, we'll toss one that way. But outside of that, I don't think it's worth the risk. And especially now that, I mean, I haven't got a D-index on my PBN in forever, but it's also massive, right? So we don't really have an issue with diversification. But I also haven't heard of people getting strong D-indexes. And my worry there is that if Google knows about an asset and says, well, this isn't good, then rather than let the abuser know, they basically just quantify it as, this thing is connected to this bad actor. And, that can hurt the overall rankability of the network, right? And as LLMs and things of that nature get more intuitive, I imagine that we're going to come to find, stuff like that being sniped more and more often. So, building a PBN is complex. It's a great exercise in SEO. I will say that if you learn how to build a PBN network and you learn how to diversify anchor text profiles via that network, it's really potent, and it's going to help your overall SEO in and of itself as well. No questions still? All right. I've got a few more here. All right. This one was in our group SEO round table on Facebook. If you're not in there, I would advise checking it out. Definitely a potent group of people, myself included, the team included. It's in there, not for being promotional, but for just answering questions, sharing information, etc. Right? So here's one. Someone told me that on-page optimizers like Surfer SEO, Pop, etc. do not work. Agree or disagree? If agree, which is the one that you've used that has worked? So I see a lot of this kind of narrative going on right now because there's a lot of uncertainty in general in tools that we used to use, be able to digest, in isolated ways, which I was talking about previously, that now, again, it's about building the overall narrative, not just one isolated piece and getting like a good read on what's going on. You have to build the entire narrative. What do I use? For content, I use Surfer SEO. I absolutely love it. I loved it when I first tried it out, at least probably going on 3-4 years ago. I mean, when it first came out, whenever that was. But I've changed the way that I utilize it now. I'll say that. So Surfer SEO, it gives you great data on what kind of content is working based on the top 4 positions usually, but you can add as many as 10 plus. That'll digest the content and then give you exact data on keyword density, length of that article, etc. What I think is incredibly important now is not just regurgitating information that's been out there, that's been redone over and over and over and over again to where you are just digesting the data that's there. As algorithms get more intuitive, they're going to know, well, this person is just using this optimizer. And as a matter of fact, that was another post that Praveen put up recently, which explained that, Google is saying, don't rely on these third-party analytics to decide what you're doing for your content. It's not going to look good. And it's not in and of itself. But if you're taking that data and then you're adjusting it to bring something new to the conversation, to humanize it even more, to look like an authority that's not just regurgitating information, but that's bringing something to the forefront of that industry, then you've given yourself a leg up over the competition. So I will still look to get things about right on a keyword density level, etc. But I am bringing something completely new to the table when it comes to creating that content. And if you've done that, brought a little extra to the table, you've got your EEAT right, etc., then there should be no doubt in your mind that you've built a well-rounded narrative when it comes to the content on your website. furthermore, and something that just came up, I was doing a podcast with Artemis where we talk about more general stuff. But if you, did I kind of lose my thought there? Give me a second. Yeah, sorry, I lost it, man. Man, I know it was something fairly important, but anyhow, that'll probably come to me here in a little bit. Yeah, Artemis and I were talking about it, so it's in there. Yeah, anyhow, I'll keep it to that. Surfer SEO is my preference by far, and bringing something new to the table is going to give you everything that you need when it comes to rankability. Oh, right. Thank you. So also keep in mind, right, as these algorithms get more intuitive, the question that we went over was, what do you think is more important? Speaking to search algorithms like Google or LLMs, or to the end user that falls on your site? You need to be well-rounded in aspects to all of them. As this shifts, as these algorithms get more intuitive in how they digest information, what you're going to come to find, in my opinion, is that on time, or people that come to your website, spend time there, actually make a purchase or not, or click through, all of that is going to be baked in further and further into the authority that's being seen as far as how your website resonates. So don't just take a algorithmic approach to everything, in my opinion. That's dated ideology that was like maybe 5-10 years ago. You could get away with spinning 10 years, spinning content, GSA spam, boom, you're ranking up all of a sudden. But what does that do for you in the end? You're ranking garbage that is not digestible by a human. The days of really just building low quality affiliate sites and making money, in my opinion, are virtually dead. You've got to build a well-rounded kind of narrative again with longevity in mind. That's going to be your best insulation when it comes to getting found in search. And it just makes sense from a philosophical principle on try and break it down. There is no instance that I can think of where search will not be based on content, right? And that's not just articles, that's videos, that's anything that's digestible, voice chat, what the hell ever, and then press to said content. These are the two digestible features that if I just go back to the truth of how all these algorithms work, that's the answer. And if you've got a different idea than that, please forward it to me. I'd love to have that discussion, because I haven't found anybody who's got a different idea than that. And I don't see how that could change. And if you just keep that simple principle in mind, and you understand that things are getting more complex while keeping it simple, it allows you to build your own narrative around your brands, assets, etc. Okay. So I think that's about all I got on that. All right. And so I guess we can go into this one right here. Just do good SEO to rank in AI search. It's something that, in my opinion, would be hard to argue. SEO, again, based on what I just said, has not changed. It's the same principle, only it's gotten more complex. Good SEO is your content base. And again, this can mean not only just articles written on a website and good EEAT, but also the videos put up on YouTube, other social media, voice chat integrations, things of that nature can all be baked in and factored. And even if they're not holding a lot of weight right now into the near future, I don't see why they wouldn't, right? But that is still your off or on page, right? Only it includes the network surrounding your brand, everything you'd want to find yourself on, in conjunction with press to that website or asset. And so press, when I mention it, I'm talking about backlinks. I mean, almost exclusively, right? Unless you want to factor in like, stuff that's not, it's not quite baked into these algorithms yet, or at least they're saying it's not, like, voice recognition software and things of that nature. But still, important to be mindful of it. So mentions in the form of press, which is backlinks. What it shows good on page is you're bringing something new to the table that is authentic. You are an authority on this subject matter. This brand is based on this niche, and we provide all the important details about what goes on here within this niche. Off page, the amount of press coming to this website based on a diverse backlink profile, which in my opinion is the most potent thing to focus on when it comes to backlinks now. We don't rely on one type of backlink. We might have had really positive results just using guest posts historically, or niche edits, PBNs, you name it. However, that is a dated approach. It's simply more complex than that. It's simply more complex than that now. You've got to understand that you are trying to emulate the toughest thing possible, which is not using any sort of footprint to create press to your website. And so take this into account, right? Keep it simple. What is a guest post? It's a contextual backlink on the inner page, a new article of an inner page of a website. Niche edit, same thing, contextual backlink, pre-existing article on the inner page of a website. PBN, the classical version, homepage contextual backlink, right? Individually, if you use all of these exclusively just one of them, you're going to be creating a footprint. It looks like obvious manipulation, right? If you diversify, specifically, if you diversify based on what is most natural as far as basic principles of what kind of links exist naturally when something is getting press, you're going to do far better. So due to data that we can digest, you'll know that guest posts typically are the most widely used press, or the type of press that a website's going to receive whenever it's made something go viral. Niche edits still function normally, but it's pretty rare that somebody goes back into an article and then adds a new brand in there. Not incredibly rare, but still fairly rare in comparison to a guest post, right? And then a PBN, in the sense of the homepage contextual backlink, is incredibly rare, right? So take these into account, not looking for a specific percentage. I hate that. Personally, I know a lot of people right now want to be like, well, what percentage should I use? I don't think that way. Any given month that I'm going in, I'm planning my backlinking campaign to an asset in the form of, all right, I've got this budget to spend. I'm going to start off, if it's already been pillowed to, if it's already got foundational link building, if I don't need to adjust anchor text because something is over optimized, etc. Let's say we've got the perfect starting point. Then yeah, I'm going to use guest posts and niche edits as my bread and butter, 100%. And I'm going to be a little bit heavier on guest posts than I am with niche edits. But then I can also sprinkle in a couple of PBN links, etc. And, that'll kind of get things going. Then if I do need to adjust anchor text profiles or something like that, I'm probably going to opt to throw in something like a press release, because it'll allow me to get a lot of anchors to the homepage very naturally, while also boosting authority. And something that a lot of people are discussing right now is interesting, because for a while I used to use press releases as like parasite SEO. It was easier to rank a lot of those articles that come out, specifically for like, brand building, SERPs, things of that nature. But over time, the algorithms got onto that stuff, and it became a little less potent depending on which outlet you were trying to use to rank, right? However, there's a lot of people discussing right now the potency of press release when getting discussed in LLMs. And that makes a lot of sense, especially if you're crafting a good story to put out in a press release. And press release, people they consider them like kind of a spammy foundational link, but they don't have to be, right? There is a true purpose to the press release, and all networks like to use these things. What's important is the type of narrative that you're putting out there, what you're trying to say with this press release. You could have new press or press-worthy information every few months or so, very naturally. For a bigger website, you could go higher velocity than that for sure, right? I personally like to use them maybe like once every 4 to 6 months for the average site. And I'm coming up with something that's craft worthy. I don't just use it as an algorithmic manipulation technique anymore, because the press release is very dynamic. A lot of clientele want to see you on news outlets, et cetera. And if you've got a really good story to put out there, and then you're taking these articles that got published on Fox News, ABC, et cetera, and you're promoting it through your social media, you'd be surprised how potent that can be for somebody to see. And it's funny because as SEOs, we kind of forget a lot of the potency that exists in what we know how to do. But, to the average person, resonating in like 500 plus news outlets overnight is a very big deal. I remember the first time I showed my father, who didn't really understand what I did for a living, etc. But I show him a press release and I go, look, I got this syndicated to countless news outlets, etc. Right? And here's the article. It seemed profound to him, right? And so not only are you using it to get mentions in the LLMs, which it does make sense because press-worthy content helps a discussion, but also the way you use it on your social media, etc., can be very potent as well. Thanks for everybody that's showing up here, giving likes, like, comment, subscribe. I'm terrible about asking for help. Yeah, but we don't monetize any of this YouTube stuff. I've always been a big proponent of just sharing information, because when I got started, I did not have any free places to go, and I spent a fortune trying to figure this stuff out, almost losing my mind a few times in the process. So yeah, if you're here, you got any questions about SEO or digital marketing or the landscape, if I can answer, I will be happy to. And if I can't, I will find the answer and I will put it in our group once I've kind of digested it. All right, let's see here. All right, still no new questions, so I'll go with, got another one here. All right, this was another one that got brought up a while back in our group, the SEO Roundtable on Facebook. Hey guys, what tools do you use to value your domains? I have the domain betlinkup.com, but I feel the brokers are undervaluing it. And before anybody gets mad that I have included the URL here, remember that it was public information within the group as well. So I don't think it is an issue. Yeah, so this is interesting because everybody wants to imagine that for all of this stuff, there's some key metrics that get spit out via any number of tools that you can use that are just like the bread and butter of digesting how potent a particular link or a particular domain is. And unfortunately, in my 10 plus years of doing this, it's just not the case. There's no spam score that is completely accurate to what you're going to be digesting. There's no one metric to rule them all, though I will say that I rely heavily on Ahrefs. And even there, we're dealing with a lot of issues since the rel equals 100 issue, right? But it's still my favorite way to digest as much information as I can about a particular website or a backlink, etc. And actually, I have a video that I probably should have promoted a lot better. But a lot of this, again, I like to just put the information out there, and if people find it and they can use it to benefit themselves, then great. I think it's awesome. But if you go to YouTube, let me see what I titled it. And I think you type in hunting domains, insert links a lot, or maybe just hunting domains in general. Let me see. Yeah, so if you type in, so the title of the video is How to Hunt Domains for SEO and AI. I put it up like 5 months ago. It's about 45 minutes long. And in it, I go over exactly how I use Spamzilla typically. Now, there are other options, but Spamzilla is now my preference for digesting a lot of information on a bunch of domains that are being dropped or at auction, etc. And then how I manually look through Spamzilla metrics, an assortment of them, which honestly, like I give you a couple recipes in there, but the more you play with it, the more you'll find recipes to what you yourself can be looking for that really works. And then how I manually, after finding a data set of websites that I'm interested in combing over, look through them in Ahrefs and digest the backlink profile as well as what the domain used to be. It's not something, that's short and super simple. Again, there is no metric that tells you right out of the gate whether a domain is really potent or not. Manually combing all this stuff and digesting what you see with your, knowledge and your eyeballs is what's going to tell you the value of a domain. Now, I say the value in the domain in aspects to how powerful it is or how rare it is, right? But a lot about domains is interesting to me, and it's what got me involved in domain hunting from the get-go, was it spoke to me on a level that's a big deal to me, which is I'm a huge antique and junk collector, right? Like I got my comic books, I got the Knight Armor, Conan the Barbarian, whatever, you name it. I've been doing it since I was a kid. And when I started hunting domains for PBN building early on, it's the first thing that as an SEO really resonated with me, where I got excited about it. I started collecting these domains, understanding how to digest the information I was reading using tools. At the time, I think I was using Majestic probably more, but Ahrefs in conjunction with Spamzilla now is my favorite way to go about it. Now, when you get into pricing a domain and what it's supposed to be worth, a lot of it is the same as comic books or other antiques. It's worth the value that somebody is willing to pay for it, right? So rarity of the amount of power that's going to this website in the form of like potent backlinks from strong, hard to get websites add up the value. Then the domain, the URL itself, how short it is, how desirable it might be, also a potent factor in its value. And then how many people are looking for something similar, right? I've paid upwards of $20,000 for a domain that I wanted for a project before because I couldn't find what I was looking for via hunting, right? Now, we're talking about a domain that had, I think, if I remember correctly, 11 to 12,000 referring domains and from very hard to get outlets, which allowed me to essentially hack what I would need to do right out of the gate from a backlinking perspective, right? All of a sudden, I've got Forbes, Entrepreneur, etc., things that might cost me, some of these links cost like $4,000 if you want a fresh one. When we're talking about Forbes, Entrepreneur, etc., it's not like the old days where you could get them easily. Like they cost an arm and a leg. So when I considered that, I knew the market I was trying to break into. To me, it seemed like a strong bargain, even at $20,000. So I was willing to pay that, right? And that was at an auction. So I'm bidding against other people there. If you're trying to price it yourself, then it's based on a conceptualization of how powerful that link is and how desirable it might be, or how powerful that domain is and how desirable it might be when it comes to using it for a brand or building of some sort, right? If you've got some weird, obscure URL that, is in some random niche that, most people aren't involved in, then, that might be more of like a PBN kind of value, or maybe a 301, but I think the 301s should be pretty specific now, especially as the algorithms get better at digesting information. So, all of that is going to play into what you can charge for a domain. And then there's countless vendors out there selling domains that you can kind of go through and digest. It reminds me of like when I first found out about eBay when I was in, I think, elementary school. And I would spend a lot of time going through random categories and digesting, what had value. Because I was into that whole garage sailing and estate sailing thing, etc. But it plays into the same principles when gauging the value of a domain. So, hope that helps. All right, let's see what comments we got. I see a couple people here. More of a comment, but still cool. Dirk, we customered with a funeral home using an outdated WordPress website. Customer gave us a test to rank him for Chinese funerals in his city. We ended up optimizing an old page, and now he is first in AI. Yeah, man, awesome. What I'll say about this, because I do see it pretty often, is the potency of offering up like a long tail or a low competition niche position as a pitch point is good if you know how to do it. And I don't know how competitive Chinese funerals in that particular city was, but to me, just at at glance, I'm guessing that was probably fairly low competition, good entry point. And then now you're getting mentioned in the LLMs, which is awesome. Yeah, good job, man. Great idea. And if you've got any pointers or anything like that, please join us in the SEO Roundtable on Facebook. I'd love to go down that rabbit hole, and I'm sure a lot of other people would as well, too. Solid. Thanks for sharing. What about SEO? I actually answered, or ASO, sorry. I actually answered this a few questions back. Just do good SEO was basically my answer. And I hate using new acronyms for what are essentially the same thing. I still say SEO in regards to all of it, because to me, it's still always search. I don't care whether I'm being found in the LLM, on Google, or any number of other places. To me, it's still SEO, and I don't like to overcomplicate the narrative, because again, I'm just going back to good SEO practices, and this will be what I hammer in for the foreseeable future. Good SEO practices, the simple format is high quality on-page techniques, right? You've got your narrative, but then now it's got to be a little bit more well-rounded, not just your website with good EEAT. You're bringing new conversations to the table. You're becoming a true authority on whatever subject you're putting out there. And then you've got a well-rounded social network, whatever, where you're putting up videos, you're putting up more information, more content that is not just one small website, but an authority figure when it comes to the narrative from an on-page standpoint. Off-page standpoint, your backlink profile is diversified to the max. Not just prodding with one tool, be it guest post, niche edit, whatever. You are diversifying into a well-rounded, hard-to-emulate series of press that is then going to be digested by algorithms that think in more complex fashion than they used to, right? That's the evolution of search. And with those two techniques, you build longevity, and then you build insulation in your network. I think the days of really just wanting to rank a sniper site really quickly and then offload it, through Empire Flippers or whatever, are pretty slim right now. I think you got to build something a bit grander with bigger scope. And even though it's daunting, I think in the end, you end up building something a lot better and a lot more bulletproof with what you're doing. So yeah, there are tips and tricks too that I've discussed. As a matter of fact, I've got a whole video ad running right now and an article based on it. If you type in ChatGPT mentions Sir Links a lot or something along those lines, when discussing backlinks vendors with it, it brings us up a lot. And I attribute that to exactly what we've been doing, which is building a well-rounded network that then resonates. And if you weren't here for the video where I discussed press releases finally having some potency again in regards to not just foundational link building, but getting you mentioned in the LLMs, there's some value there as well. So it's always great to be prodding, experimenting, but at the same time, I think that overall building solid narratives based around your networks is the future of any SEO right now. Just to keep it simple. Yeah. All right, Julia, do you need to build links forever, or once you reach your main competitor's authority levels, can you just work on outpacing their velocity? Excellent question. Now, there are instances where I could play devil's advocate and argue about this. And while I'd like to, I'm just going to give you the straightforward answer. You should never stop any of it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody who's putting out really good content that goes viral all the time, you're getting press, right? In the form of backlinks. So, if that's your game and you don't need to purchase links, at least not to that high of velocity, then great, utilize that structure. But there's not many people that can do it, quite honestly. I've been doing this a long time. I rarely rely on that, to be honest with you, right? What I usually do is I figure out the budget for a project right out of the gate. I split it up into on-page and off-page factors. And as a backlink vendor, I don't mind saying I'm typically spending more money on my on-page, especially right out the gate. But there's not going to be a month where I negate one for the other. Why? Because I'm trying to build a well-rounded narrative surrounding this entire structure. And the way I do that is by putting up high-quality content, right? I'm using Surfer. I'm using other tools to ensure that I'm getting something that's well-rounded while also bringing a human element to it, adding something new to the conversation, which is desirable with the LLMs, etc. And I'm going to consistently be doing that. There's never going to be a time that I'm working on an asset where it is just dead in the water. And if you do that, you'll come to find, you're going to stop resonating. And as SEO gets more competitive, you're going to have to you'll come to find that if you let off the gas and somebody else is working harder than you, they're going to pass over you, same as you're trying to do to these other lower competitors that maybe built a website a while back, got some press, and then fell off. But if you are working your on-page factors and then you've got a strategic budget for your backlinking every single month, there is no reason that you would stop. And I say this because a lot of people want to let off the gas after they've ranked number one for like some main keywords. They see themselves beating up the competition. They're like, well, yeah, I can just save some money right now. When you do that, you're allowing for the opportunity that a competitor is working over you and will come back and topple you. The reason that I will never stop from content and backlinks is so that I know I am always leading the pack in whatever niche that I'm trying to win in. Letting off the gas would allow them an opportunity to come up and take me out. And if they get way too far ahead, I'm going to have to spend that much more money trying to get ahead again as well, while dealing with all sorts of issues like intense, I say intense link velocity, but I also don't necessarily believe in it, but that's because I know how to diversify backlink profiles, and I've got networks that are complex enough to facilitate that should I need it. But I'm going to say that's there's not too many people that have access to those kinds of tools, right? In the form of large networks that can kind of play algorithms. So yeah, I would personally say, so long as you are winning, there's no reason to stop. If you're getting a positive ROI with what you're doing, then usually I say keep doing it. And then with some of those profits, whatever you can, whatever you don't need to put in your pocket, you go ahead and you experiment with some new stuff. Like if you're just focused on SEO alone, I heavily advise, when you've got a little bit of extra profit, try out some ads, try playing with some different concepts, because as you build this narrative, that is also included. It's not just what you're doing from an SEO standpoint as far as ranking up in SERPs, but also what the entire network actually looks like. I don't have proof of this, but I do, and I've gone over it with some people I work really closely with. I do think that when you get to a certain point of competition in the SERPs, running ads becomes something that is influenced, or that can help influence how you rank as well. So yeah, my opinion, don't ever let off the gas. If you're winning, you want to keep that position, and you want to keep doing what you know will resonate. Yeah, I hope that helps. I think I'm about out of time. I will give this another couple of minutes, and if anybody's got any questions or anything they want to say, feel free to bring it to my attention. I am happy to help. Again, I'm sorry that I haven't done this in a long time. Things have gotten a little hectic as I'm building out, the bigger broad spectrum stuff with my companies. A lot of people probably don't know, but we've got another analytics tool that we've been working on that is top notch now. Kind of proud to share it. So kpi.me, if you haven't checked it out yet, it is a agency analytics kind of dashboard. You can white label it. We've even built our own custom bot that'll go out and prod LLMs to see if you're getting brand mentions, etc. And all of this is completely free right now. Probably within the next month or so, we'll actually start charging a nominal fee. But for right now, if you sign up, it's free, and then you'll just get that account lifetime. So yeah, get in there, try it out, try and break some stuff. And if you do, or if you got anything to say about it, please bring it to my attention. I'd really be happy to hear it. And then just to plug it one more time, if you're not familiar, we started a month-long Black Friday sale now. So 25% off all our products on Sirlinks a lot, including managed link building, which for those of you that don't know, if backlinking seems kind of daunting to you, then you'll get an account representative that audits your website, gives you insight onto what we could do from a backlinking perspective, what we expect it to do, and helps you just digest what's currently going on. That's absolutely free. And then if you want, you can sign up with us. And we handle all your backlinking with just the budget provided, no extra fees or anything like that. So yeah, I don't see any other questions rolling in. Thank you to everybody that showed up. Please like, comment, subscribe if it's not too much for you to do. It really helps us. And I will be back next week. So yeah, join us in SEO Roundtable, and I'll see you on the next one. Appreciate it, everybody.